They thought I was the failure of the family, and so they gave me a $2 lottery ticket. And for my sister being the golden child, the most adorable and eloquent one, they gifted her a $13,000 cruise ticket. My sister laughed and embarrassed me, calling me a loser in front of everyone. My parents didn't stop her. They acted as if I wasn't human. What they didn't know was that the most underrated and unexpected ticket was what was about to change my life forever. 3 days later, after they found out, they were shocked. Their hearts couldn't rest. They called until I saw 120 missed calls on my phone. My name is Diana Hale, and for most of my life, my family never openly said I mattered less. They didn't need to. They showed it in 1,000 small ways. In what they praised. In what they ignored. In what they gave, and what they withheld. Lauren, my older sister, was the achievement. The investment. The one with potential. I was the adjustment. The compromise. The one who would figure it out. I learned this by age 9, when Lauren got piano lessons and I was told to use the library's free keyboard software. When she got tutoring, I was told I was naturally resilient. When she needed help, my parents rearranged their lives. When I needed help, they rearranged their expectations of me. By the time I was an adult, the pattern was invisible to everyone except me. I stopped expecting fairness. Stopped asking questions. Stopped trying to compete. I built a quiet life instead. At 32, I worked in urban planning, designing sustainable green spaces for commercial projects. I loved my work. It mattered. It helped people breathe easier, even if no one at my family table understood it. To them, I was still the one who works with plants. I arrived at my parents' house at 6:10 p.m., holding a loaf of cranberry orange bread I'd baked that morning and a small rosemary plant grown from a cutting in my kitchen window. I'd spent weeks growing it. My mother opened the door before I could knock. "Oh, you're here," she said. Her eyes dropped briefly to what I was holding. "Is that bread?" "Yes," I said. "And rosemary. It's good luck." She nodded politely and stepped aside. "You can put it in the kitchen." No hug. No "how are you?" No smile. From the living room came laughter. Loud, bright, unrestrained. Lauren had arrived. I could hear my mother's voice change instantly. "There's my girl." I stepped inside just in time to see my parents wrapped around my sister, admiring her coat, her hair, her confidence. Her husband, Mark, stood beside her holding expensive gift bags, smiling like a man who knew exactly where he stood in the hierarchy. I stood by the door with my bread. No one noticed. Eventually my father glanced up from his recliner. "Diana," he said, eyes already drifting away. "We'll need help plating in a bit." Of course. I walked toward the kitchen, passing conversations I wasn't part of, smiles not meant for me. This was familiar territory. I knew how to move quietly through it. I was refilling a water pitcher when I heard my name. The kitchen door was cracked open just enough. Lauren's voice floated through first. Light. Casual. "So the cruise leaves January 10th. "Yes," my mother said. 2 weeks. Mediterranean. "That's insane," Lauren laughed. "Mom, Dad, you didn't have to do all that." "We wanted to," my father said. "This is family time." "What about Diana?" Lauren asked. There it was. My entire existence condensed into a single question. A pause followed. "She's always busy," my mother said finally. "And a trip like this is expensive. She wouldn't be comfortable." Comfortable. The word stung more than I expected. They hadn't asked if I wanted to go. They hadn't asked if I could afford it. They had decided. I pushed the door open. "I wouldn't be comfortable?" I asked. 3 faces turned toward me. My mother smiled too quickly. "Sweetheart. So I'm not invited." Lauren sighed. "Diana, don't make it weird." My father avoided my eyes. "This trip is about celebrating Lauren's promotion," my mother said. It's not meant to exclude you. But it does, I said quietly. Lauren tilted her head. You're so independent, Dee. You always have your own thing going on. Independent. That word again. Before I could respond, a voice behind me cut through the room. That's enough. My grandmother, Evelyn Hale, stood in the hallway, leaning heavily on her cane. She was 91 years old, frail in body, but sharp in ways that made people uncomfortable. She had watched this family longer than anyone else. She saw patterns others pretended not to. You don't treat one child like she's optional, Grandma Evelyn said. My father shifted uncomfortably. Mom. I'm speaking, she snapped. She turned to me and squeezed my hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Later, as my mother ushered her away toward the guest room, Grandma Evelyn leaned close to me and whispered something that didn't make sense at the time. Call Jonah Mercer. I nodded, even though I didn't know why. I would soon. Dinner ended. Wine flowed. Dessert plates clinked. My father stood and tapped his glass. Before we wrap up the night, he said, smiling broadly, Elaine and I wanted to do something special. The room quieted. This year has been big for our girls, he continued. And we wanted to acknowledge that. He turned to Lauren. Sweetheart, come here. She stood, glowing. My mother handed her a thick envelope. Inside was a luxury cruise itinerary. Gasps. Applause. Cheers. Lauren cried. The graceful kind. Oh my God. Thank you. She hugged them both. Then my mother turned to me. Diana, honey. She handed me a thin paper envelope. Inside was a lottery ticket. Mega Millions. $2. This seemed more appropriate, my father said, chuckling. Someone laughed. Mark leaned back in his chair. Maybe lightning will strike. Lauren covered her mouth, giggling. Imagine if she wins $5. My face burned, but I smiled. Thank you, I said. I'll keep it safe. Something in me shifted. Cracked. Freed. It was past midnight when I started cleaning. Everyone else relaxed. In my father's study, papers lay scattered across his desk. I wasn't snooping. I was stacking. That's when I saw the numbers. A loan agreement. $220,000. Interest so high it made my stomach drop. Co-signed by Mark. Collateral. Grandma Evelyn's house. Dated during her hospital stay. My hands shook. I photographed everything. For the first time, the favoritism made sense. I wasn't the disappointment. I was the liability. 3 days later, alone in my apartment, I scratched the ticket. One number matched. Then another. Then all of them. I checked again. Then again. $100 million. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I called Jonah Mercer. Jonah's office smelled like old books and leather. Your grandmother trusted you, he said, sliding documents across the desk. She created a trust in your name years ago. $600,000. Hidden. Protected. And her house? I asked. He sighed. Your father leveraged it. Questionably. I leaned back. What are my options? Jonah met my eyes. With money. Many. I nodded. Then let's protect her. I didn't tell anyone. Not about the ticket. Not about the lawyers. Not about the truth. The cruise left without me. And then my phone started buzzing. 1 call. 10. 50. 100. By nightfall, 120 missed calls. I sent one message. I'll explain everything tomorrow. On video. Everyone present. They thought they'd won. They had no idea. They arrived early. That alone told me everything. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway, 3 cars were already parked crookedly along the curb. Lauren's, Mark's, and my Aunt Patricia's. Curtains twitched as I stepped out of my car. My mother's silhouette hovered just behind the front door like she was afraid I might vanish again if she blinked. I paused with my hand on the door handle. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bracing myself. I was steady. Inside, the house felt different. Not warmer. Not kinder. Smaller. Everyone was seated in the living room like this was an intervention, except I wasn't the problem this time. Lauren sat closest to my father, her posture stiff, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Mark leaned forward, elbows on knees, jaw locked. My mother paced near the window, twisting a napkin until it tore. When I walked in, the room went silent. "Diana," my mother said, rushing toward me. "Thank God. We've been so worried." "Worried?" I smiled politely. "About what?" She hesitated. "You disappeared. You sent that message. People are confused." "Good," I said. I took the armchair opposite them and sat down. "I said I'd explain everything," I continued. "So let's do that." My father cleared his throat. "Before you start." "No," I said gently. "I'll start." That stopped him. I folded my hands in my lap. They weren't shaking. "You all believe I'm irresponsible," I said. "That I struggle financially. That I'm somehow behind." Lauren shifted uncomfortably. "You've treated me that way for years," I continued. "The lottery ticket was just the first time you did it publicly." My mother scoffed. "Oh, Diana, don't be dramatic. It was a joke." I nodded. "Then so is this." I reached into my bag and placed a thin folder on the coffee table. Jonah Mercer's letterhead. Mark's eyes narrowed instantly. "What's that?" my father asked. "Documentation," I replied. "About the loan." Silence crashed into the room. Lauren blinked. "What loan?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. "You didn't know?" I asked. Her head snapped toward Mark. "What is she talking about?" Mark's face had gone pale. My father stood abruptly. "This is inappropriate." "No," I said. "What's inappropriate is using Grandma Evelyn's house as collateral while she was sedated in a hospital bed." My mother gasped. "That's not true." I slid my phone across the table. Photographs. Signatures. Dates. Patricia leaned forward, squinting. "Elaine, is that your handwriting?" My mother's mouth opened, closed. Lauren stood now, eyes blazing. "Mark." He swallowed hard. "It was temporary. You promised me there were no risks," she said, her voice rising. "I didn't want to worry you," he snapped. I watched the fracture spread. My aunt cleared her throat. "Diana, how did you even get these?" I met her gaze calmly. "Because I pay attention," I said. "And because I wasn't the one drowning in debt." That landed harder than I expected. Lauren laughed nervously. "What does that mean?" I leaned back. "It means I've been financially stable for over a decade," I said. "I own my apartment outright. I've never carried credit card debt. And until recently, I had no idea any of you were in this deep." My mother shook her head. "That's impossible. You barely work with plants." I finished for her. She fell silent. I took out my phone. "I'm calling Jonah now," I said. "He'll explain the rest." My father lunged forward. "You don't need lawyers involved." "They were involved before I ever showed up," I replied. I put the call on speaker. Jonah's voice filled the room. Calm, professional, precise. He explained the trust, the inheritance, the house. And then he said the sentence that broke them. Ms. Hale exercised her legal right to pay off the outstanding loan in full yesterday. Lauren's head snapped toward me. "You paid it," she whispered. "Yes," I said. Mark slumped back into the couch. "And one more thing," Jonah continued. The trust now holds full ownership of the property. Permanently. My mother collapsed into a chair. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Lauren whispered, "How?" I met her eyes. "Remember the lottery ticket?" I asked. Her face drained of color. "You didn't," she said. "I did," I replied. My father laughed weakly. "That's not funny." "I won $100 million, I said. The room tilted. Patricia crossed herself. My mother started crying. Not softly. Loud. Panicked sobs. Lauren stared at me like I was a stranger. Everything changed in seconds. My mother reached for my hand. "Oh, sweetheart." I pulled back. My father smiled desperately. "We should talk about family planning." Mark stood. "Diana, listen." "No," I said again. "I've listened my whole life." I stood up. "This money doesn't change who I am," I continued. "It just removed your excuse for how you treated me." Lauren's voice cracked. "So what now?" I looked at her. "Now," I said, "I leave." I visited Grandma Evelyn that evening. She already knew. She squeezed my hand. "I always wondered how long it would take you to stop shrinking." I smiled. "Too long." She shook her head. "Right on time." The cruise was cancelled. The marriage didn't survive the debt. My parents sold their second car. They call sometimes. But I don't always answer. Moral lessons. This story is a quiet warning about how easily people confuse worth with visibility, and love with reward. When favoritism becomes normal, it teaches one person entitlement and another endurance, often without either realizing the cost. Words spoken as jokes can wound more deeply than open cruelty, especially when they come from the people who are supposed to protect you. Those who are overlooked learn patience, discipline, and strength in silence. Not because they lack a voice, but because they are preparing for a moment when their truth will no longer be ignored. Success does not create character. It exposes it, stripping away excuses and revealing who respected you before there was anything to gain. In the end, real family is not defined by shared blood or shared celebrations, but by consistent respect, fairness, and presence, long before the outcome is known.